Hey, what's up, guys? Ivan here at IET Suspension. Really excited, guys. We're finally start working this YouTube channel a lot more. What I got here behind us is a 2015 Chevy Silverado. It's a two-wheel drive, although there are some G71 batches on here, but two-wheel drive, guys, completely stock, and we're going to be equipping it with our full IHC 4.6 Snoring kit with helper bag. So I'm going to go. It's going to be an instructional video, and we're also doing instructions at the same time, so we can make literature and put them inside the boxes. But this is something that we've been slacking, guys, is not really using this YouTube channel. The last time we made a video on an install on these kits was 2.5 years ago. So for some of you that have been following us on social media, guys, our manufacturing processes from 2.5 years ago to now is night and day, and we'll get into that later. Maybe I'll make another episode or whatever you guys want to call it, and I'll show you guys, a little tour of our facility. But for right now, like I said, we're going to be dropping this truck. First things first, guys, this truck here, I know it's never been in an accident. I know the customer, he's here locally. Truck has like 40,000 miles on it, so it's never been on a wreck. So that's one thing that I know, which is very important, especially when you're lower a truck. But first things first is we need to take our measurements. So I'm going to grab a tape measure, take our measurements so we can compare our before and after. So let me do that now. And I'm going to show you guys exactly where to measure. So one of the mistakes that happens a lot is customers try to measure the truck when they're on uneven surfaces, which will affect your height. And also I've seen customers with the spare on. And it's like, hey man, this thing's sitting a little bit different, but you'll be surprised at stuff that I've seen. But anyway, so let's start with taking our measurements. So I got my tape measure, and you always want to get a good reference point. So the best reference point is going to be from the bottom of the rim, right at the lip, and you're going to go up to where the fender is. So right here, we're sitting right at 32 inches. So it's not recommended, guys, to go from the bottom, because it can change, or if you go, from here, it's not accurate. The best way to do it is from the bottom of the rim right to the top. Like I said, we're right at 32. Got some tape here, and just gonna go ahead and tape it on here. Just tape it right there, and I'll put 32 inches. So, of course, once we finish up, then we'll go ahead and take our after. Now I'm going to do that to all four corners, and from there we do have a lift, but I decided to do this one on the floor. I'm going to put it on jack stand, since a lot of our customers are your do-it-yourselves, especially on the weekend. So I want to show you guys that it's actually a very simple kit, but I want to show you guys how simple it is for some of you that would like to tackle this on the weekend. So let's get started. I'll just take my measurements, jack it up, and then I'll show you guys, I'll start with the front, and then I'll go ahead and start with the back. All right, guys, so right before we get going on actually disassembly of the truck, I would actually like to show you the parts, everything that we're going to be installing on this truck. So we got them here on the table. I kind of sectioned it off. So we have from here to here is everything in the front. From here to this right here is going to be everything in the back. And then if you do an option to do the helper bag kit, which we highly recommend if you tow or haul, this is everything that we need for the helper bag kit. So, but let's start over here first. What is the difference between us and our competitors? The main difference, guys, is we use control arms. We do not use spindles and springs. These trucks that are coming out now, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 trucks, and the ride quality is amazing. Nothing compared to the way it was in the 80s and 90s. So control arms is the way to go. We maintain the factory strut assembly, which is going to be the stock coil spring, and your stock strut, your stock shock and your stock spring, which is your strut assembly, and we maintain the same spindle. So the way you achieve the drop is with the lower control arm, and then the upper is going to be for your alignment. We got polyurethane bushings, we got our Zerk fittings, fully powder coated, guys, silver vein. We powder coat everything here in house, so our quality control over powder coat is on the money. So we had the guys for Sherwin-Williams come in. We did a chip test, we did an efficiency test on our oven. So we're very proud to say that we powder coat here in house, and we can control if there's anything going on with powder coat chipping. So But let's continue. So like I said, we got our ball joints with our hardware. We have our shorter sway bar links. These control arms, guys, are going to drop you 5 inches, and then we include these spacers to get an inch adjustment. So these arms will adjust you 5-inch drop up to a 4. Now for the back's pretty straightforward, guys. It's going to be a flip kit with drop shocks. On the flip kit, we have our saddle, we have our bottom plate, and then we have our top plate with our nitrogen charged drop shocks. Nothing too crazy on the back, guys. There's no C-notch required. You do need to remove your bump stops, but we'll get into all those details once I'm actually on the install. And then for the back side, this is our helper back kit. So we have our brackets here. You know, they are directional. We got our hardware all attached, which is the way we like to ship them out pre-assembled. We have our Firestone bags. We have our lower bag brackets. We have our 12 feet of 1/4-inch air lines. And then we have our DOT fittings, of course, with our hardware. So this is pretty much everything that's going to be on the truck. Kind of seems like a lot, but it really isn't, guys. It's just, you know, kind of break it down to 3. But for right now, like I said, let's get going on the truck. This truck, actually, the customer's going to pick up tomorrow by noon. So it is Friday, like 3 o'clock. So I need to start with the front, and then I'll probably come in tomorrow so we can knock out the rear. But let's get going with the front for now. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back. So yesterday, this is one of the reasons why we haven't really worked that YouTube channel, is a reason that I get interrupted so much. So yesterday, it was Friday. I was attempting to start the front end, and it wasn't gonna happen. I had about 15 interruptions, and I said, oh, the heck with it. So anyways, it's a Saturday. Yesterday, all I did was pretty much just jack it up, put it on jack stands, and I'm gonna go ahead and start with the front end now. But before I get going on the front end, just want to show you guys the stock suspension. Remember, this is a 2-wheel drive vehicle. Like I mentioned, there are Z71 badges, but those are just badges that he put on. So everything's completely stock. We got our stock strut assembly, which is our spring and our shock. These are factory ranchos on this truck. Factory spindle, guys. Everything's pretty much stock on this truck. So I'm gonna go ahead and get to it. I'm gonna start disassembling. Before I start disassembling, guys, just real quick, because I get asked, hey, what kind of tools do I need? For some of you guys that are very experienced, you're probably thinking, why the heck would you do that? But we want to cater to, you know, to everybody. So real quick, I got everything I need here on the ground. Let me just show it to you guys real quick, and this is pretty much everything that I would need. So give me a quick second and show you guys. So I got my 1/2-inch impact. I got a 21 and I need a 24. My 10 millimeter, just I have it on my cordless right there. I got my ratchets. I got a 21 ratchet wrench, 18 ratchet wrench, 15 wrench. This one right here, which is going to be for my stabilizer link. There's just a panel popper. I got my air ratchet with the 21, and of course you got your hammer to knock off the spindle. So anyways, guys, let's go ahead and get started. There's different ways to get going. One thing, guys, that I've noticed is I've seen several YouTube videos, and every once in a while we get tagged on Instagram and stuff, and I'm looking at stories, and I have guys that are trying to remove the upper control arm and then put our upper control arm, leaving the spindle attached to the lower, and then they try to do the same thing on the bottom. Technically, yeah, that is a way you can do it, but holy crap, guys, that is very difficult. Very, very difficult. So I'm going to show you guys the way that we recommend everybody to do it, because it's much easier. It leaves you no room for mistake. I mean, when you start, you know, take this off and you leave this attached to the lower, I mean, you're just risking the chance of, you know, ripping an ABS wire or a brake line. So that's not what we want. But let me get to it. For some of you guys that are experienced, like I said, you don't got to watch this video. You can just go over to our instructions. But some of you guys that may be interested in buying this kit, or you're just watching it for the instructions on how I'm doing it, then, you know, just continue watching. So let's get to it. First things first. I don't want to go like exactly too much into detail, guys, so I'll just give you a quick breakdown what I'm going to do. I'm going to loosen the 21 for the tie rod. That's going to allow me to pivot my spindle. I'm going to remove my whole caliper assembly. I'm going to hang it to make sure that I don't overstretch my lines. I got to disconnect my ABS wiring, same thing, so I can make sure I have slack. And then I'm going to go ahead and continue to remove my spindle, remove my strut, remove my upper, and then remove my lower. So continue walking. All right, guys, so let's get going. First things first is I'm going to loosen that 21 on my tie rod. And guys, just, you know, if you're doing it at the house, put it on close to your jack stand, so make sure you don't lose it. If you got a little magnet tray, you can put it on the magnet tray. Now, need a hammer. We're gonna smack this right here. Smack the spindle till the tie rod pops up. Oh, this fucking alarm. Turn that alarm off. So yeah, what I was saying is you're gonna smack the spindle, and make sure you don't smack the tie rod itself because you're gonna damage it. So make sure you just smack the spindle. I'm a little uncomfortable here since I have the camera there, but just bear with me. So pop that off. Now it makes it so much easier to pivot this thing, you know, in either direction I need. So next thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and loosen up my ABS wires. Our panel popper. Pop that off. Now this ABS wire, guys, is a little red clip. Just pull that back. Pull it back, make sure you don't damage it. There you go. Actually, I'm being lazy, guys. What I need is my pick. Pocket screwdriver, guys, or pick. Should have done it with that panel popper. Has so much dirt in there. We actually took this truck to go get washed, guys. This thing was filthy. So I said, hey man, I'm shooting a video, so we got to get this truck washed. Customer was cool with it, so they came in and washed it up. So now, I took that off. On this side, it just stays there. I got a 10 millimeter here. Take this one off. Got another one over here. These right here, guys, I'll just go ahead and throw them right back. So we'll leave them there. So this is your brake line and your ABS. It's just a bracket. And let's go ahead and take off here. Well, there we go. So this is our ABS, and then our brake line over here. Now the next step is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and remove this caliper. So for the caliper bolts, guys, it's an 18, and I'm removing the caliper, but with the whole assembly. And I'll show you guys right now. Move it this way. Alright, so remove your caliper assembly, guys. Very important. Do not just let this thing hang, because what can happen is you can overextend this brake line and you can cause an internal brake leak, and then you start getting like a spongy pedal on the you know, when you're driving. So what I got here is just a little tool we made. You can use a clothes hanger, a metal one. This one, we'll just go ahead and hang it. Let's see, put it right there. Put it, hold it by the frame. Just leave it hanging there. You know, there's a little bit of slack on the line. So that's that. Next thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and remove the spindle. So I need an 18 ratchet wrench right here. This one here, guys, so so it's loose there, but I'm not gonna take it off completely. Go all the way down and then just start the thread. My lower, we got a 24. Same thing, guys, loosen it up all the way, and then I'm gonna start the nut again. And the reason I'm leaving the nut on there, because same thing, we're gonna smack here, we're gonna smack the bottom with the hammer. And the last thing we want is, you know, we take off both nuts, smack the crap out of it, and then your foot's in the bottom, you're gonna squash your toes. So want to make sure that does not happen. So let's get started smacking this. One good smack there. Let's smack it down here. At the bottom, you got to get comfortable. if you guys can see how it you got the ball joint that popped off the spindle, so we'll take off the lower. And on some newer trucks, guys, like a 2018, even the 19s, could be a little bit difficult, so you might need to get a bigger hammer. Worst case scenario, if you can't, the upper one's always very easy to pop off. The lower one's sometimes where you have trouble. Worst case scenario is you remove the whole lower control arm with the spindle. Just be careful, and then once you have it, you know, over here off to the side, then you can go ahead and smack it much easier. All right, guys, so now with the spindle removed, you guys can see everything looks much easier now. You know, we got our upper, we got our lower, we got our strut, and then we got our sway bar link. So what I'll do next is just remove the sway bar link, 2mm, guys. So, just hold this up here. This right here, we'll just put it back. Put this back. And we'll get our nut. There you go. So that's your sway bar link. That off to the side now. I'm gonna go ahead and take off the strut. So I'm gonna start with the top, guys. It's an 18 ratchet wrench. I'm gonna loosen up these bolts. You do have these little clips that go over the stud. So paddle popper, just pop them up. There you go. Same thing over here in the back. Let's pick this up and we got plenty of room. So I took off the top 18s, there's 3 of them. Then I'm gonna take off the bottom. The bottom studs are 15. So we got these loose. Just push down on the lower control arm and you can take the strut out. So I know I'm gonna get asked, guys, so if this vehicle on the 4-wheel drive, so if this truck was a 4-wheel drive, of course you'd have a transfer case here and then you'd have a CV axle. It's the exact same concept, guys. The only difference is on your spindle right in the center there's going to be a big old bolt. That's what ties down your CV shaft. So all you have to do is just take off that big bolt. The CV shaft, you can just push it back and then you just continue with the disassembly. So here next, what I'm gonna do is take off these upper control arms. And one thing I want to mention, guys, is this truck here, it's never been aligned. So it's a 2015 and it's never been aligned. The indication of that is you have these plastic inserts here that are still on. Typically whenever you get an alignment, they pop them off, and let me see. They pop them off. Most of the time they break. You can see it's like a little half moon, because this is the way you do your alignment. You do your alignment with the upper control arm. So you guys can see them here. Like I said, most of the time the alignment tech will pop these off and then just forget about them. This one, they're still on, so it's a pretty good indication it's never been aligned. But it does have them on both sides. We'll pop this one off as well. There we go. And then with the 21, I'm gonna just go ahead and loosen it. So that's that. All that shit. All right, guys, so that's one bolt. Remember, these things, these are alignment locks. I'm sorry, these are alignment tabs. And make sure these go back the same way you put them on. So just keep them together so you don't lose them. I'll just loosen the other side. Put this back together. And there you go, guys. So we took our upper control arm off. Now we're gonna take off the lower. The lower control arm, guys, this bolt, the back bolt, comes into the backside. So the sway bar itself is actually in the way. So what I'm gonna do is just go ahead and loosen up my sway bar. There's two 10 millimeters that clamp here and then clamp on the other side. So I'm just gonna go ahead and loosen it. See if my cord is strong enough. So that allows me to move this out of the way so I can be able to take off my bolt. So now let's go ahead and loosen those lower control arm bolts. Now when I loosen the bolts, guys, this control arm is going to go ahead and drop. So make sure you don't got your knee or your toes in the way. Same thing on the opposite side. Alright guys, so as soon as I hit that bolt over here, that lower control arm came straight down. That's what I was saying, make sure there's nothing, you get your feet out of the way. So now let's just take these bolts off. On here. And there, this is our lower control arm. All right, guys, nothing too crazy on disassembly. Assembly is just as easy. You guys can see it didn't take much. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and grab our IHC upper and lower control arm and show you guys some quick steps that need to be performed before you actually install them. And then from there, just continue with the assembly. All right, guys, so a quick step before you actually go and actually start assembling control arms. One thing that I do that I recommend anybody to do, in all reality, anybody who does control arms, that's done control arms for a long time, it's a little trick that there's not much to it, but it really helps you out. So when you go to put these control arms in, it is a tight fit. So what we recommend to do is just flare out the pockets a little bit, just with the hammer. I'm not saying go to town and open it up 1/2 inch on both sides. It's just very little. It opened up maybe about 1/8 of an inch on both sides. When we go ahead and put the bolts in, it's going to go ahead and close. The uppers is not that difficult because you have it literally right here in front of you. The ones on the bottoms are where it can get a little bit difficult. So that's the ones that you want to, just make sure you open up a little bit. So same thing. That's it, guys. Smack it a little bit, and now the next step, that make sure that it's done. If you guys skip this step right here, guys, you will start having to have squeaky noises pretty quick. So you got to lube up the walls on the frame pocket, and then we also lube up the walls on the actual polyurethane bushing, and just like that, nothing too crazy. And what I'm using, guys, is just, this is actually just from O'Reilly's. It's just high temp wheel bearing grease. All purpose, multi-purpose grease would also work. This is what we got here, so this is what I'm using. And it also helps it slide in much easier. So there's that. Now let me do it to the lower control. So we have our lower control arms, guys. And so yeah, if I wasn't to put any grease on here, it's a polyurethane bushing. We do pre-grease them. You guys can see the grease there. but it never hurts, guys, to add more. So what I'm gonna do is just grease up the walls here. And like I mentioned, guys, this applies for, I mean, it doesn't have to, if you're watching this video and not even thinking of lowering your truck, maybe you're thinking of doing a lift kit, and then you're going to do some lift kit upper control arms. Almost everybody, guys, uses these polyurethane bushings. So this is a very good trick that applies to any polyurethane bushing. So let's start with putting in the lower control arm. Now, one thing, guys, I want to mention, just because I thought about it right now, there are two different bolt sizes. The one in the back is longer and the one in the front shorter. So if you were to put the one in the back, the one in the front and the back, you're going to have like a 1/4 inch of thread to grab onto. And believe it or not, I've actually had that that tech call where they're like, hey, I just put your control arms, and is there supposed to be new hardware? They send us pictures, and it's like, all you got to do is just swap the bolts. And kind of have a brain fart over the phone. They're like, oh, okay. So just make sure you do that. Put the bolts exactly where they came off. So there you go. That's the one in the back. And then just grab our nut and then just start it. So there you go, guys. So that's the lower control arm. Nothing is tight, guys, just finger tight, because we want to be able to still move it. Now let's get our upper. So here we have our upper control arm, guys. The ball joint comes separate, and then of course, well, it comes included in the kit. When I mean separate, it doesn't come attached on the control arm. This one here already had done it. Ball joint sits in the bottom, guys. We have our hardware. We like to apply Loctite on the ball joint bolts just to prevent it from ever backing off. They do have a little crush washer, but it's still recommended. So now, same thing, I'm going to go ahead and lube up the walls on this upper control arm. And same thing, guys, this one's going to slide right in. Now when you go to put these on, guys, remember, put them on exactly the way you took them off, which they go from the inside out. But do not make the mistake of putting, imagine if I was to put this in like this. And if I put this in this way, then my alignment, it's not gonna work, guys. Your alignment, so this one, if you guys can see the indentation, how it's like that. So this allows it to move it up and down. But if I put it this way, I put it this way, well, then you're not gonna be able to get your, there's an alignment pin here, which is what sits in here and allows the arm to pivot forward and back. So just make sure you put them back exactly the way you took them off. This one actually goes on this side.
I think I make sure you put it back exactly how you took it off. The other side.
Alright, guys, so that's our upper and lower control arms. For some of you guys that are thinking, hey, are you going to grease those up? The ball joints we do. but I like to grease them when everything's assembled. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get my my strut and then bolt that back on. Remember guys, nothing's tying. All I'm doing is just assembling everything. If you go and start, if I was just tying up this strut in the top, there's no way in heck I'm gonna be able to bolt up the lower control arm to the strut. You gotta have that wiggle room, and then you go ahead and tighten everything up. And this one here guys, it is gonna take a spacer on the lower control arm, so we can set it at a 5, but same thing, I'll do that once I'm ready to tighten everything up. I can still slide it in real quick through the bottom. That's no big deal. All right, guys, so I got my strut, I got my upper, I got my lower control arm. Let me just finish putting the hardware on the top. All right, guys, so now what I can do is I can actually tie my strut now. So I'm not gonna tie my control arm, just my strut. So let me do that now. The top tightened up. Now I got my spacer. This is a spacer that I'm gonna slide in here in the bottom. Actually, let me bring the camera view this way so you guys can check it out. All right guys, so down there, the spacer right here, all it's gonna do is slide in, throw it to the back. There you go. And it's gonna contact the studs there, and then all I'm ready to do is just tighten it up. All right guys, this is just a little safety note. Whenever you're gonna tighten these bottom strut bolts, never hold this little clip with your finger. A lot of guys tend to do this. You know, they're gonna go through the bottom and they put their finger here. If that little clip slides off, that little tab where it's off, it's gonna cut your finger really good. And believe it or not, I actually had it happen to a guy. So just make sure the spacer's in. You can hold the spacer if you want, because your fingers are out of the way from the from the top. There. The sway bar guys, I'm not even gonna worry about it. That's actually a good note. We get quite a bit of calls in this, like, hey, I just put the control arms on one side and I can't bolt up my sway bar. Well, the other side's still stock, so it's gonna put a lot of pressure on this sway bar here. So sway bar is the last thing that we install, guys. Well, the sway bar link, it's a shorter sway bar, which is right here. This one goes right here, so that'll be the last thing we install. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and tie in my, actually what I'm gonna do now is go ahead and put my spindle on. Let's go ahead and get that spindle on, and I'm gonna cover a very important topic on that spindle, one that we get asked quite a bit, which is the upper ball joint where you gotta remount the spindle. So I'll cover that. I'll cover that here real quick. All right guys, so what I got here, this is, whenever you go to purchase on our website, you're gonna see that there's 07 and 13, and then there's 14 to 18. 07 and 13 guys is going to be your cast, and then 14 to 18 is going to be if you're running aluminum or stamped steel, which GM switched it up. And what they did, the control arms are identical. What they did was change ball joints. So this is a ball joint off cast control arms. This is cast, guys, and if you guys go there on the website, whenever you click on the kit, it's going to tell you if it's cast. So if you have a, say, a 2015 and it has this exact same control arm, then you're going to refer to the 07 and 13. If it's aluminum, then you refer to the 14, 18. But anyways, so what I got here, this is a cast ball joint, and then this is going to be for your aluminum stamped steel. You guys can see that the taper is different. The aluminum, the stamped steel, is a much bigger shaft, and then the cast, it's a little bit thinner. But that's one thing, just a little FYI, so when you guys are going to order. But regardless, whenever you, so this one here, I mean, I got the correct ball joints, but when you try to, this ball joint's the same one I have here. When you try to put this ball joint here to the upper, you're going to see that it doesn't go all the way through. You guys can see it there. The thread on our ball joint is just slightly bigger than the stock one. Let me show it to you guys so I can check it out, because this is a, I mean, the guys that have been doing well, just familiar with GM are very knowledgeable on this. But for your do-it-yourself guys that, you know, you're on the weekend, then you get stuck because it's like, oh man, I think I got the wrong ball joint. Yeah, it's a quick fix, guys. So you guys can see there, this thread is slightly bigger. So that's why it's not allowing it. That's why it's not allowing it to go through. Quick fix, guys. All you got to do is just remount the spindle. With the 1/2-inch drill bit, all you're doing is taking off a little bit of material here on the bottom so you can be able to pass this completely through. Once you pass this through, then you can put your castle nut and cotter pin, you're good to go. So I got here my 1/2-inch drill bit. I'm giving the drill. So that's it, guys. You guys can see all it did was take off very, very little. As you guys can see over here on this side, I mean, you're not messing with the actual taper of the ball joint, guys. The taper remains the same. It's just the very bottom where you're just allowing the thread to pass through. So there you go. Now the thread passes through, you can put your castle nut and you're good to go. You can use 1/2-inch drill bit, would be the easiest thing to use. If you got a pencil grinder, you can just, you know, over here to the bottom. If you got a file, you can do it as well. So nothing too crazy there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the spindle to the lower ball joint. Just make sure you get your hardware ready. The last thing you want to do is, you know, you put it on there and then you're trying to reach for your hardware. Put the upper and put your castle nut. All right, guys, so now we got our lower, our upper, we got our strut assembly, we got our spindle. Remember, the only thing that I've tightened was the actual strut. What I'm going to do now is go ahead and tighten my control arms, and then from there continue with putting my caliper, and then just, you know, putting these brackets back on and tie out, and we should be good. So let me continue with tightening the actual control arm. A very important step, guys, when you're going to tighten it, is you want to make sure that you put your upper control arms, the alignment tab. So you see this little half moon, guys, and then you have this little tab that sticks out. You want to make sure you leave it right in the middle, and that's going to be for this side and this side. If you leave this one all the way up and then this one all the way down, your caster is going to be so far off, it's going to be very difficult for you guys to perform your alignment. If you take it over to an alignment tech and he sees that, he'll be like, you know what, the heck with that. Hey man, you know what, your truck doesn't align, the parts are incorrect. So the easiest thing to blame are the parts, just reason being either the guy's being lazy or he just probably doesn't know how to do the alignment. But yeah, halfways, guys, and then from there we set our toe so you can be able to drive it over to the alignment shop. So what I'm going to do here is, and you move it on the inside, so you guys can see here as I move this inside bolt. Let me get on this side. As I move it, that's how your alignment's going to move. You guys can see it there. So I want it right in the middle, so about right there, and then I'm going to go ahead and do this one as well. And it's sometimes it can be a little bit difficult, guys. They actually sell this tool to be able to perform the alignment, to get a good wrench in here. Because sometimes, yeah, the way the nut, the head of the bolt is, it's a little bit difficult. So this one here, I have it too far down, so let's move it up a little bit. I'm gonna hold it so it doesn't move on me on the opposite side. So I'm gonna hold it right there. Let's go ahead and tighten this up. I don't want to tighten it. I don't want to tighten the crap out of it, guys, because then your alignment guy still needs to loosen it. Keep that in mind. So you tighten it enough where it's drivable. So right there, you guys can see it actually moved on me a little bit. I need to get it a little bit lower. So let me just go ahead and loosen it. I want it about right there. Just a good little snug. Same thing on the opposite side. Alright guys, beautiful. So now I'm gonna go ahead and tighten my lower control arm. And it's a 20, the nut's a 24 and the head of the bolt's an 18. So right here. guys. When I'm tightening the bottom, you can see the frame pockets start closing. And then, of course, I can feel it on the impact. You don't want to tighten the crap out of it, guys, so much. What's going to happen is you're going to mushroom that bushing. It's kind of difficult to do on these Chevys, but if you're watching this video and maybe you have a Dodge or a Ford, the factory alignment on the Dodge and Ford's on the lower control arm. And yeah, if you tighten it, I mean, it needs to be tight, of course, so your alignment won't move. But there's some guys that just go to town with it, and yeah, those bushing. I mean, you're gonna see it, guys. Common sense. If you just stay on there for 30 seconds, you know, giving it 30 ugga duggas on the gun, it's gonna, yeah, you're gonna mess up the bushing. So you guys can see it here. Honestly, guys, it's just common sense when you're tightening these bolts. All right, guys. So we have the strut tightened up, we have the upper control arm tightened up, we have the lower control arm tightened up. What I'm going to do now is go ahead and tighten up my spindle. And my lower is a 24. Actually, guys, one thing that I do recommend everybody to do on your ball joints is put a little bit of Loctite. That's just something that, I mean, they do have their cotter pins, but it's just a habit. I've always done it. I recommend you guys to do it. If you have I've had a ball joint pop off the spindle while you're driving, and yeah, it sucks. So we'll just go ahead and put a little bit of Loctite on here. Same thing on the lower. We got that, and then now let's just tighten it up. And we got our cotter pin. We'll put our cotter pin through. Alright, and then on our upper, it's an 18, and we can, actually no, this is a 3/4. Alright guys, so I tightened the upper one. Make sure, guys, you don't over tighten it, because then you're going to strip it, give yourself more work. You're going to have to go to these ball joint guys. Just in case you do strip it, you can purchase them at any local parts store. The upper ball joint part number is K6136, and the lower is K61, no, I'm sorry, 6541. So just in case you do strip it, you can go ahead and still get it taken care of. Spindle's tightened up. Here's our ABS here. Now the next thing to do is get our caliper on. And this step is very, very important, guys. It's so important that even from factory it comes with it, where they apply Loctite. You want to make sure you apply Loctite to these caliper bolts. If you do not apply it, guys, your caliper will come off. It will damage your wheel. God forbid, you know, get into an accident or whatever, but you guys can see we'll apply it there, and then let's go ahead and get this caliper, pick it up, take this off. So we got that tightened up. All right, guys, so it's an 18 millimeter. Remember, I haven't put my tie rod in because I want to be able to pivot this. So now let's tighten this up. All right, guys, so remember I had just threaded this little 10 millimeter. So we'll put that there. This one, bring it, we'll attach it up here. ABS. Just clip it back. Make sure it clips, guys. Safety clip. Put that back. Let's tighten this up right here. over here, guys, with this clip, all we're gonna do is just put 2 zip ties. That's gonna keep it in place. All right, guys, and that's about it right there. So nothing too crazy. Now you guys can see that everything's assembled now. We got our strut, our upper, our lower. Here, the only thing left to do is we're gonna put this tie rod, and of course, like I mentioned, the sway bar link, we don't do it till the very last, because if you try to do it here, guys, it's a pain in the butt. So I can put this tie rod on now. Since I'm already here on this side, remember you gotta do you gotta eyeball your alignment, so you must perform an alignment after you're done. Since I'm already here, remember up on the top, guys, this is how you adjust your camber and your toe. Remember, your camber is going to be if the top of the wheel is sticking too far out, that's positive. If it's too far in, that's negative. That's one of the most important one, guys, because that's what's going to cause your tires to wear. And then also your toe. So camber and toe are the most important. Your caster, as long as they're relatively close to each other, preferably 0.5 higher on your driver's side for the crown pull. But I mean, you can. For the do-it-yourself guys, you're probably like, what are you talking about? Just take it over to a alignment shop and they'll get it dialed in. But remember, upper control arm, leave them as close as possible. And then this is how you adjust your toe. Your toe is going to be which way your tire's pointing in, you know, in whatever direction, if you're towing in or towing out. If you have the opposite side towing out and then this side, you know, towing out, well then you're gonna feel it in the steering wheel. So all I'm gonna do here is just loosen it, and then when we're done with the other side, we're gonna go ahead and set our toe, and I'll show you guys how we eyeball it. Let me just loosen this tie rod. You guys can see here the nut loosen, and then once you loosen this, then over here you get another wrench, and then you can turn it in whichever direction you need. If you thread it this way, it'll go in, thread it the other way, it'll go out. So, all right, guys, so I'm pretty much done with this side. So that is how you replace control arms. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna knock out the other side. I'm not gonna record it. There's really no purpose to it. It's exactly the same thing as this side. And once I'm done with that, then we'll jump onto the back, show you guys how to do the flip kit. So let's continue. All right, guys, so now I'm gonna put my sway bar link on. All I did was just bolt up my sway bar. I didn't tighten it though. Those 10mm that we took off, where the grommet goes, all we did was just finger tighten them. Now what I'm gonna do is put my sway bar link on, which is this one. Now they do come pre-assembled, guys, so y'all can check them out. So real quick, you have your metal piece, grommet, metal piece. You have a sleeve, metal piece, grommet, and then you have your metal piece with your nut on the top. So let's just disassemble this. And the way we start, guys, is we put the sway bar link from the bottom. So we're gonna do like that with the metal piece. Put our sleeve. Another metal piece. Grommet. All right, guys, so you can see from the bottom up, the nut goes on the top. So it's grommet. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side real quick. Get that one, yeah. Okay, so the other side is already on. I got my cuz here, he already put the other side on. So I'm gonna go ahead and tighten it up. Now, what I wanna mention, guys, is these grommets, you don't have to tighten the living crap out of it, guys. I've seen a lot of guys, you know, they call me, or tech support, they send pictures like, hey man, my sway bar links are no good. All right, well, send me a picture to see what's going on. And they tighten this thing so much that it just completely tears it. So remember, it's just a 14mm. I got my 1/2-inch impact, which in all reality, what I should be using to make my 3/8, but check it out. You guys can see how it's gonna tighten up. Right there, guys. That's all it needs. Maybe about 1 inch up here. You know, you can see it's nice and tight. And then I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. And then I'll come back, and then I'm gonna go ahead and tighten my 10mm, the one that actually go to the frame. Once I'm done with that, I'm gonna come back, grease up my ball joints, and grease up my bushings, and that's it, guys. We're pretty much done with the front. Actually, no, I lied. One more step. Remember, we got to do our alignment. We gotta make sure we set it tight. And then we're done. So let's go ahead and let me go ahead and tighten all that stuff up, and then we'll continue with the alignment. All right, guys, so I'm gonna grease it up. So the reality of having a shop, my dad is always here, and I do have a badass grease gun. I can't find it. Been like searching for like 15-20 minutes. So this is one that one of the guys has in his box, and it does work, but I would have loved to show you guys my other grease gun. It's an electric one. So just pump it up, guys. I know it might be hard to see in the camera, but I can see the boot getting slightly bigger. Let's do the bottom one. So the bottom Zerk fittings, guys, does have a 90-degree. Man, it might be a little bit difficult for you guys to see, but same thing, we're gonna grease it up. Actually, the boot will got a little bit bigger. Okay, and then same things. The upper, guys, on the Zerk fittings on the controllers, we do a 90, so it can be real easy to access it. Same thing. And then we're gonna repeat the thing to all of them. Now, if you guys want to have absolutely no trouble, this is what needs to be done, guys. That's the only, I guess, disadvantage of controllers, is that it requires maintenance. But it's not something you got to do every week or every month. It really depends on your driving. We recommend to do it about every 5 to 6 months, which would be twice a year. I mean, that's not that bad. If you're one of those that puts, 25, 30,000 miles in a year, well, then maybe you want to do it, every 3-4 months. But we recommend everybody to bring it back after 500 miles, so we can do a retorque on all the suspension, and then to come back 6 months later, so we can just lube everything up. So that's one of the topics that, one of the calls we get quite a bit. They're like, hey, I'm getting a little bit of noises, squeaking, or whatever the case may be. And it's like, how long have you had the kit? I've had it on for 9 months. Have you ever done any maintenance? Oh, well, I didn't know I had to. And so that's probably the shop or the customer really not know it. But yeah, there's a reason why everything has a Zerk fittings, because it needs to be lubricated. All right, guys, so now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna continue to the back. I'll show you guys the alignment once I get the vehicle completely on the ground. So we're gonna jump to the back. We're gonna do a flip kit, and we gotta do a helper back kit. So let's do that.